Okay, YouTube. We are going to be reacting to scary stories.
And I made a love heart. But he said it looks like
A dick and balls.
beep.
Fuck.
Beep. Let's watch.
Okay.
My wife and I are outdoorsy people. Our first date was a picnic in the middle of the woods. Our wedding was in my parents' backyard, which is almost surrounded by forests. This matters because this story begins and ends in a forest. Late summer of 2014, it was one of those moist kind of summer days. My lady and I went on our weekly stroll or hike through a forest near our home. About 3/4 of the way through, she noticed a pile of hair, wire-like hair. Of course, we didn't touch it, but we didn't know what to do. It was clearly hair from a person's head, not an animal or anything, but other than that, we didn't think much of it. The next week we went back, but this time the hair was gone. In the place was a letter, clearly had just been placed there, as if someone was waiting for us. The letter read, "Why did you ignore me?" I told my wife it was just trash, but obviously she didn't believe me, but knew she would be better off. Early summer of 2015, nothing had happened ever since. I wish it would have stayed that way. We walked around the same area that we made our discovery. We never really talked about it. If it did come up, we would joke about it, saying that Brittany was at it again or something. Anyway, at this time my wife is about 4.5 months pregnant. So we just took an easier path to walk. About halfway through our walk, I heard a whimper to my right. I looked, and there was this woman, about in her early 40s. She was dirty, as if she'd rolled in dirt for days. She was holding onto a tree, digging her mostly broken or numbed fingernails. I took my wife's arm and led her behind myself, and I asked, "Ma'am, are you alright? Do you need me to call someone for you?" She replied, but I couldn't make out what she said. "Pardon? Why?" She started vomiting what looked like black mud. I motioned my wife to start walking away while I stayed back to make sure she didn't follow or chase us. She didn't hesitate to start walking off. Knowing she was pregnant was most likely the reason, but when the woman noticed my wife walking away, she charged at us. Unknowing of her strength, I didn't prepare to be pushed down. I fell onto my back and she was on top of me. She tried to scramble up while staring in the direction my wife was now running in. I tightly wrapped my arms around this woman and she started vomiting onto my forehead. She tried screaming, but she would just choke. Once she had finished, she screamed, "Why did you ignore me?" But I was too engaged in the idea of how the fuck am I going to get out of this. I started to wiggle to try to get myself on top of her. But once I did, what next? Stand up, shake hands, and leave? No. My face was right on her upper chest, so I couldn't just whip my face into hers. I got my arms out from under her, and I used them to hold her arms down, and I lift myself, almost like a push-up. Then I press my foot-filled boot onto her stomach, then I mentally count to 5. Then I accidentally kick her chin with my other foot-filled boot, and I take off. I look back at her, gripping her jaw and reaching for me while screaming. It's amazing how fast a person can run when they feel like they could die. I dodged every rock and tree. I even went off the trail just in case she ever got up and ran for me. Eventually, after what felt like hours, I meet the edge of the forest and the side of the road. Our town is half a forest. I look left to right, no wife to be seen. I ran to her car and she wasn't anywhere to be found. I leapt into the driver's seat and started screaming and pulling at my face, punching the wheel and stomped. I leaped into the driver's seat and started screaming and pulling at my face, punching the wheel and stomped. Then I heard crying and screaming in the back, and it was the love of my life, laying on the seats holding her ears and knees to her chest, or as close as they could get. I pulled myself back there so fast I don't even remember. And I hugged her so fucking tight she smacked me off because of the vomit on my head. We did not call the police because this experience caused my wife a lot of stress and sleepless nights, that she had a miscarriage and we chose to forget. We do not go on walks that aren't by roads or buildings. It's been 5 years since then and we have 2 beautiful boys. We never saw this woman again, and I hope we never do.
Otherwise, you're fucking gonna shotgun it.
I was sleeping over at my friend Jacob's house in September of 2015 with another friend of ours. Jacob lives very far out of the way next to a lot of forest land in northeast Pennsylvania. Now, I do not get frightened too much anymore, but I've always been creeped out by the barren woods around his house at a very young age. The story begins at around 11 o'clock at night with the three of us hanging out in the large field that stretched for about 800 yards from Jacob's house to the thick woods. We got bored out there after a while and decided to go back to the house. When the three of us were about 200 yards away from the house, we looked back to 3 bright red road flares scattered far apart from each other in the field. We were not very scared at first because we thought it was Jacob's 18-year-old brother and his group of friends that were also over that night, playing a prank on us. We walk a bit further to see that Jacob's brother and his friends were hanging out by the house, so there was no possible way they could have lit the flares. His brother, along with his friends, began asking us why we lit flares up in the field, and we explained that we thought it was them who did it. Well, the next thing I know, the whole field was lit up with spotlights and car headlights from all of the 18-year-olds and Jacob's dad. Whoever the trespassers were, they had put very sharp pieces of scrap metal, almost like they were trying to sabotage us if we would come after them with any kind of vehicle to pop the tires. The group keeps saying that they were seeing multiple silhouettes of people running along the edge of the high grass field and the woods. One of the 18-year-olds, Joe, went chasing after one of the trespassers, which he had seen sprinting in the woods. He had lost the guy, but what he had brought back with him still sends chills down my spine. Joe brought back a potato with a very sinister face drawn on it that he said he found on the ground. Time passes, and Jacob's dad tells Jacob and I to stand up on the tree fort that their family had built with a spotlight. The tree fort was about 35 yards into the woods, and was lower to the ground yet wider across. We were standing up there scared shitless, searching the woods with the spotlight. About an hour passed, and we all decided to end the search. When we all began driving back to the house, Joe once again saw a shadow. But get this, he saw 2 shadows that came directly underneath the tree fort, then ran off. This time, Jacob's dad went to go check it out because he saw the figures as well. 15 minutes.
Hey.
It's boring.
If you want to watch this video, watch that video to the end because she didn't want to watch it. The link's gonna be in the description. Wait.
Do you know how to link?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just copy it and then you paste it in the description. Okay. Which one do you think we should do next? Field trip. No, field trips. Because ghost stories are gay. They all just normally. Yeah. True scary field trip horror stories.
Please tell me it has videos.
Yeah, there's gonna be a video.
Why do they have something
To make it fucking scary.
Why do they have to make it fade?
I used to be in the Darien School District in Connecticut during my middle and high school days.
Why is it a photo?
It was a wealthier district, and a lot of field trips were offered to the students. I was a member of the chorus, and every year we'd take at least 1 or 2 optional field trips as a class. The year in question, in which I was a sophomore, we took a trip to Woodloch Pines Resort in Pennsylvania. The bus ride there took a few hours. I was with my friend Landon. We were going to be sharing a
Don't
room.
go there, people, because you're fucking.
From the moment we got there, we figured it was going to be pretty dead.
I'm just
It was November after all, so
Don't
it was cold
live
up
in
there.
Pennsylvania, or you're fucked.
We had 3 days planned for the trip, and there were 4
All
chaperones.
these videos.
They weren't really following us at all times. We just had to tell them what activities we'd be going to do. The first day was fun. Landon and I, along with 2 girls who we were friends with, did some go-karting, rock climbing, went in the pool, and then we went to eat dinner. After dinner, we went back to our room and just hung out for a while.
Oh, yeah.
For the record, not all the students were able to get rooms next to each other.
Oh.
The room was ground level, and there was a clear sliding door that provided a view of the lake down the hill. We went back out for a while, then came back to the room at about 10 o'clock. We left the blinds to the door open because the moon was giving off a cool reflection on the lake down below. Little did we know that would be the start of a nightmare. If I had to guess, I would say it was a whole hour of us just rolling around in both of our beds trying to get comfortable, occasionally talking, before Landon, whose bed was closer to the door, screamed.
They make bullshit. This is photo.
I had no idea what was going on, why he could have been screaming, or if it was a joke, until I looked at the door. It was a sight from a horror movie. There was a really tall, skinny older woman with long grayish hair standing on the other side of the door, with her hands cupped up against the glass next to her face, as if she were trying to better see into the room. The woman then walked away. Landon looked at me, I guess waiting for me to get up so he would have the confidence to get up as well and run outside after her.
Probably their old fucking...
When we didn't see her anywhere though. The cement trail that ran past each and every room of the building was void of any people. There was nobody on the surrounding grass, nor anyone walking down the hill. We both saw the woman though, so we knew we weren't seeing things. The next day we didn't tell any of the chaperones, but we told the two girls who we were friends with.
No, you should have
Night
fucking
came
told
once
the
again
teachers.
after a long day of many activities.
That's dumb. Just
We entered the room through the back door and made sure to
What
shut
are
the
girls
blinds
gonna
this
do?
time.
Show their...
Landon fell asleep before me.
Go.
I fell asleep around half an hour after
They're like,
him.
oh, I'm fucking disgusted. I'm fucking...
I woke up to silence.
Fucking disgusted.
I couldn't tell if something had woken me up or not. All I knew was that I didn't feel
Oh,
right.
that's why.
I sat up and whispered Landon's name to see if he was awake. He didn't answer, so I turned to the left out of pure instinct and curiosity to look at him. But I couldn't see him. Something was blocking my view of the other bed. I looked up, and towering over my bed was the tall old woman. She took 2 steps
God.
back as she said, "Your back door was unlocked," before turning around and walking outside. I was frozen in that bed, except for my shaking. I woke Landon and told him what happened. We locked the back door, shut the blinds once again, and agreed to stay up the rest of the night. It was already 4 in the morning, so we wouldn't be losing much sleep.
I would never...
By 8 o'clock, we went to the dining hall to eat breakfast. When we got back to our room building, ready to tell our chaperones, we could see the old woman through the glass of the neighboring room. She was sitting on the bed, hands folded, sitting up straight, facing the door, facing us. We ran to the front desk in the lobby building to report her to the staff instead of the chaperones. It was weird, none of them really knew what to do in the situation. Eventually, we persuaded them to come to the woman's room with us. There, they found the woman sitting in the same position, along with an older man sitting on the other bed, looking up at them as they entered. Apparently, the woman had some kind of mental disorders, but the man wasn't all there either. There was something very off-putting about him, and they just weren't the kinds of people that you'd expect to see at a family-friendly resort. The staff wouldn't kick the two out like we hoped, though, so we told our chaperones. Long story short, after a lot of arguing between chaperones and staff, we had to end the trip early, and we all went home. Me and Landon were just happy to get out of there.
I would be really naughty, so I could get the fuck out of there. Oh,
When I was in the 4th grade, my class took a field trip to a rural zoo-type place about an hour away from our school. I remember vividly it was a cloudy day with the occasional raindrop or two falling. The zoo was kind of small, but it was kid-friendly. It had a decent amount of habitats, mostly smaller animals though, nothing exotic.
Do you wanna...
There was also a big building as part of the zoo where taxidermied animals were put on display, along with other interesting attractions that I don't really remember. Admittedly, I was kind of off in my elementary and middle school years.
Can we change this? Because they're just photos, I told you. It's photos. Come on.
Fucking hell. Wait. Oh, wait, you did a good job.
Let me press it.
Okay. Thank you.
And we're gonna watch this.
But ghost stories for Halloween are normally just bullshit.
If you guys... Oh, pardon. Read the description.